Italian football has another two problems to add to, well, the failure of qualifying for the World Cup for the third time in a row. That still doesn't sound real, eh? Man, like many of you was a very different person the last time I saw them in a World Cup, but I haven't changed much since the scandal from last week involving laughing gas, escorts, and allegedly Serie A players from AC Milan, Inter, Sassuolo, etc. Nor was I very different this past weekend when I heard about the Serie A officiating or match-fixing scandal that has come to light, or at least the investigation that is ongoing currently from the Milan prosecutor's office. This is a criminal investigation, fellas. We're talking brown envelopes filled with cash, secret meetings, all of that. Or maybe none of that, because it's an ongoing investigation and it could come to nothing. But at the moment, you have some very serious allegations against Serie A and Serie B's referee designator, Gianluca Rocchi, aka the guy who chooses which referees will oversee which match. This is all a bit reminiscent of what happened about 20 years ago with Calciopoli, right? Guys, welcome to another Rabona TV news reaction type video. We're figuring it out still. But before that, God, it really has been a wild week. Gazzetta dello Sport came out with an article that shed light on a multi-year investigation by Milan police into a prostitution ring disguised as an upscale party service where players from top clubs, I mentioned them in the intro, had their names redacted from the files, but allegedly were taking part with the escort services and using laughing gas with said escorts, which of course doesn't show up in a typical drug test. Nobody does it like Italy, eh? Remember the big story last year of Lazio's Falconer barricading himself in a club building, refusing to leave despite being fired, all thanks to him posting about his prosthetic penis implant on social media? Unbelievable stuff coming out of Italy. And there's so much more, of course, but let's focus on what's going on with Rocchi and his investigation of sports fraud that he is a part of, or the center of. Now, Gianluca Rocchi was a pretty prominent referee from Italy back in the day. He officiated at the Olympics, at the World Cup, tons of Serie A matches, the Europa League final between Chelsea and Arsenal, many Champions League matches, a big career in officiating. In fact, so big it seems that he has been inducted into the Italian Football Museo del Calcio Hall of Fame. When he officiated his final match against AS Roma and Juventus in 2020, they applauded him. Rocchi later became the head referee designator for CAN, which is the National Referees Committee, and, well, he designates referees. He chooses who officiates which matches, which in itself, not a job I would want. You simply cannot escape conspiracy theories with that position. Are you serious? That's got to be one of the most annoying jobs to ever have. Unless you're getting those brown envelopes we talked about, eh? But yes, he's being investigated by Milan's public prosecutor's office for sports fraud, of which match fixing falls under this umbrella. His colleague Andrea Gervasoni, who is the VAR supervisor for CAN, is also under investigation, both of whom have been suspended by themselves. They are self-suspended as announced in a statement from CAN and AIA, which is the Italian Referees Association, which, yes, is kind of separate from CAN, but not really. This is a living organism that we're talking about here. And already, as I was writing up my notes for this, 3 more individuals have been added to the investigation. Things are changing all the time. VAR referees Rodolfo Di Vuolo, Luigi Nesca, and Daniele Paterna, more on him in a moment, have all been added to the investigation. Because, anyway, as I said earlier, this is all very reminiscent of Calciopoli, where, doing some quick paraphrasing of the minutiae, that massive case was cracked open with similar accusations lodged against the referee designators for the 2004-05 season, Paolo Bergamo and Gianluigi Pairetto. So that's the fear here in the fear in Italy, that it's heading down a similar road. But let's get into the incidences that Rocchi and co are being investigated for and how they actually came about. So it is alleged that Rocchi colluded with some Inter-associated individuals on April 2nd at the San Siro, where they discussed refereeing appointments for Inter's upcoming matches. The report alleges that Inter wanted to avoid having referee Daniele Dovere oversee some of their most important matches of the season, as apparently the Inter hierarchy don't approve of the guy. They think that he manages poorly or referees against them. So an alleged God, how many times can I say alleged? But anyway, an agreement was allegedly in place that Dovere would take the second leg of the Coppa Italia semi-final against AC Milan in order to not have him in the final or their important clash against Bologna in Serie A. Now, of course, Inter didn't make the final of the Coppa Italia as AC Milan beat them 4-1 on aggregate, and they lost the match against Bologna as well thanks to a late Riccardo Orsolini golazo, but not because of the referee. That essentially ended Inter's title charge, handed the reins to Napoli right there. Now, a couple of things here. One, it's incredibly important to note that nobody from Inter, at the time of recording this at least, is under investigation at the moment. It's Rocchi and the other individuals that I mentioned, the other officials. The other thing that you cannot allow to sort of poison your brain is the fact that no, Inter did not win these matches despite Doveri not taking over the officiating. But if proven that they did try to collude with Rocchi or anyone else to pick and choose the referees, it still would be match fixing. Failed match fixing, but match fixing indeed. But even failed match fixing is still match fixing. Also, Marotta, Inter CEO, has since said that they first heard of all of this in the news themselves, and even mentioned how Inter actually should have had a blatant penalty in a match against Roma in this season, which Rocchi admitted was a mistake by the official in that match. Clearly, there wasn't enough cash in that brown envelope. Again, kidding, of course. Again, it's all just alleged. It has to be proven as true because neither Rocchi nor Inter have been told who exactly Rocchi was allegedly meeting at the San Siro, according to Rocchi's lawyer. Now, the interesting thing is that these Inter matches against Verona on January 6th, against Bologna on April 20th, and against AC Milan on April 23rd are not what truly kicked off this investigation. The first domino came during a match between Udinese and Parma on March 1st, 2025. Now, this match ended 1-0 in favor of Udinese with a penalty converted by Florian Thauvin. Yes, Florian Thauvin. Remember him? He's actually back at Lens now, but after he went and played in Mexico, he returned to Europe via Udinese in 2023. But anyway, who cares about that? What's really important here is that the penalty was initially not going to be given by Fabio Maresca, and the VAR, Daniele Paterna, and his assistant, Simone Sosa, believed it wasn't a penalty either based on the angles they'd seen. Important context. Like England has Stockley Park where the VAR takes place, a central hub for all matches. Italy has the International Broadcast Center in Lissone. They aren't outside of the stadiums or something like that doing VAR in a truck. So Lissone, this is where Paterna and Sozza were working VAR for the Udinese-Parma match. So after making their decision, you can hear a knock-knock on the window. Paterna turns to the window behind him and mouths "E rigore," or "it's a penalty," only to then beckon referee Fabio Maresca to review the handball. Then the penalty was given. Now, a certain disgruntled referee named Domenico Rocca. I know it just had to be so close to Rocchi, but Rocca was upset that his peers were getting to oversee such big games so shortly after putting in poor officiating performances, while he wasn't, despite in his mind performing better, and yet his contract wasn't renewed. What he witnessed at Lissone for the Udinese and Parma match was the last straw for him, and he took his grievances to the Italian Football Federation, claiming that it was indeed Gianluca Rocchi who had knocked on the glass, therefore allegedly affecting the outcome of that match. However, I gotta say, it does look like a penalty to me. Right outcome, in my opinion, yes, but the officiating should be done by the officials, right? Not by people on the other side of a glass door or window. So this whole thing is a weird moral quandary. Ultimately, the right outcome in my eyes, but through the wrong means. The Italian Football Federation investigated Rocca's complaints, especially the Udinese-Parma incident, but the Federation's prosecutor, Giuseppe Cine, finally stated, quote, "No conduct warranting sporting disciplinary action has been found against any member of the Italian Refereeing Association," the AIA. However, the interesting thing is that the public prosecutor has picked up the case, widened the scope to the other matches, like the Inter matches and even a match involving Salernitana, I believe, and they have a much higher bar when it comes to getting involved, when it comes to evidence, right? Their threshold for evidence is higher than that of the Federation. So that in itself is quite interesting, but until they actually reveal what their evidence is, it's all very shadowy and in your imagination at this moment. Sure, the Udinese-Parma thing, has much more visual evidence of someone stepping in, and audible actually, as the audio recording is available to hear, and you can hear the knock before Paterna changes his mind suddenly. But that is an overstepping at most by Rocchi. The other allegations of secret meetings to do some match fixing at the San Siro, that has brown envelopes and crime documentary vibe to it. But there's no evidence as of now, and there is no investigations into anyone at Inter as of now. So until more comes out, this is all pretty weak at the moment. There's no evidence of wrongdoing yet, so let's wait and see what comes of it. Anyways, guys, that's it. Please make sure you deposit your brown envelopes into my mailbox before you go. And thank you for watching. Champions League later this week. Let's go. Later.